Hi, and welcome to Get a Clue Dad, a Tween Mysteries podcast. I'm MJ.
And I'm the dad, Aidan. And together we're going to be talking about mystery fiction that's aimed at a younger crowd, tween and middle grade readers, just like MJ. So MJ, I want to begin by having you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself. How old are you, and what are some of the things you're interested in?
I'm 11. I do a lot of theater. I'm currently in a play. I like to read.
You love to read. You've already read a huge number of books this school year. And when you brought home a copy of a book by Robin Stevens, I got kind of excited because this was a book series I actually had on my bookshelf already. Now, you brought home one of the last books in the series.
Because they do not number the sides, and
They didn't number those sides.
I assumed it was a one-book series.
Yes, but when you brought it home, I pointed out, just so you know, I have this book on my shelf. If you want to start from the beginning, I'll read it with you. And then we were getting ready to read it, and you had already finished, and you were starting on book 2. And you thought that you might want to do something about it on my blog.
Yeah, I did think that.
So what made you think that a podcast would be fun?
Well, I had one of my bucket list goals was to be on a podcast, so this kind of checked it off, so.
It checks it off. So well done. We have knocked something off your bucket list.
Yes, I have, and I'm only 11 years old.
So the way we're going to work this is that we're going to talk about a different mystery novel each time, though they may be part of the same series.
Or a different one.
Or a different one. And we're going to begin by discussing the book generally, and then towards the end of the episode, we're going to have a special section.
A spoiler alert.
A spoiler alert. So when the spoiler alert plays, from this point onwards, everything is fair game. We're going to tell you who did it, why they did it, and we're going to talk about the ways that we feel about the solution.
Or why they did it.
Or why they did it, exactly. And I think that the book we're talking about today has a really interesting why done it angle, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what you have in store. The book we're going to read this time is Murder is Bad Manners by Robin Stevens, which is known as Murder is Unladylike.
In the UK.
In the UK. And this is the first book in Robin Stevens' Wells and Wong series. So Murder is Bad Manners is a historical mystery novel. What do you think of when I say the phrase historical mystery? What do you think that's all about?
Something that's happened in the past that they're writing about right now is probably my best guess.
Right. So what's important is that historical mystery is set in a time earlier than when the writer is writing.
Mm-hmm.
So if I was writing a book in the 1930s about the 1930s, that isn't a historical mystery.
No, that's a present day mystery.
That we're reading that is now historical to us.
Yeah.
But a book like Murder is Bad Manners was written in the 21st century, is set in the early 20th century.
Yeah.
So what were some of the things that made you realize that this was set in an earlier time?
Well, actually nothing, because you were the one who told me about that, because I did not read the first page before the actual chapter. I kind of skipped through that bit, and I didn't realize that this was actually set in 1934. I was assuming like the 1990s.
So, yeah, there's kind of a strange thing that this book has a historical setting, but aspects of it are quite timeless. Now, I recognize some language choices that were made and the absence of some modern things that clued me in quite quickly. But I do agree that there are things about this that feel incredibly relevant even today. And I think that the reason for that is that the relationships between the characters are recognizable, even if they took place 90 years ago.
So, Dad, what did you think about the way that they set up the story?
Well, I think that one of the things I really loved about the way the story is introduced is that we have two characters who are already really good friends at the start of the book. So
we are complete opposites.
They are complete opposites. And those are our narrator, who is Hazel Wong, a student who's from Hong Kong, and her friend Daisy,
who is from England.
And Daisy is pretty and popular. And Hazel has struggled to fit in a little bit. And we find out more about that as the book goes on, don't we?
Yes, we do.
We do.
We find out a lot.
So one of the things about this story is we kind of begin where the detective society has already been set up. They've solved some cases, even if they haven't exactly been complicated ones.
They were Easy.
They would.
Like, my level easy.
Yeah. So it's things like a missing tie.
Yeah.
Now, the case that they're going to be solving here is much more complicated because we actually have a murder, don't we?
Mhm.
Now, one of the reasons that I know you've been reluctant to read mysteries is that you don't necessarily love stories that feature death.
But one thing I do have to say is this one kind of hid the death by moving the body after she has found the body and knows a murder has happened. Though Daisy never actually sees the body, which means that she has to trust Hazel that she's actually telling the truth.
Hmm. So, yeah, that's a good point, right? I think that that's one of the reasons that it's important that Daisy and Hazel have already set up this detective society. They're already good friends. So, the fact that Daisy doesn't see it isn't really a block, is it? She trusts Hazel. She knows that Hazel wouldn't lie to her. Now, the way that the book opens is that a couple of pages in, we have the discovery of a body, one of the teachers at the school. And Hazel goes into the gym and she finds this body very near where the previous year, one of the students had passed away,
Yes, Verity.
Verity. So she finds this teacher's body and she panics and she runs to try and get help. She runs down the hall,
And
gets her friend Daisy, and by the time they get back, what's happened?
she finds that Daisy is actually with someone else.
Okay. And then she gets them all to come back to the gym. And in the few minutes they've been gone, something has happened.
The body is gone.
The body is gone. So we have a disappearing body. But this is kind of interesting because that means that the person who had done the murder must have returned and hidden it in the few minutes it took them to go away.
Yes, which means they probably had seen Hazel,
Mm.
which doesn't feel good for Hazel.
No, it's a little bit nerve wracking, isn't it? Because what if they know that Hazel had found the body when they're clearly trying to keep this murder quite secret? As you say, the murder happens very early. The body disappears almost immediately. So we kind of get the puzzle, but we don't have to focus on the icky bits of the murder, right?
Yeah, they know that she's dead. They gotta find out where she is, how she died, who did it, why they did it, and how they did it, frankly.
Right. And then, being kids, they're going to have to find a way to get justice or prove their point, which
Mhm.
means they've got to try and solve the case formally. So, lots of problems for our characters to overcome. Let's get started then by talking a little bit more about who those characters are.
I think we should begin with Hazel, don't you?
Yeah, I think so too. So, who is Hazel Wong?
Well, Hazel Wong is an 8th grader and secretary of the Wells and Wong Detective Society
S-
and is the main character of the book.
She's the narrator, the person who's going to tell us the story.
Yeah. This is in first person view, which basically means that a character is telling it, not someone else telling them about the character.
So, everything are her experiences. We can only know the things that she knows.
We can't see what Daisy's thinking or Beanie or some of the other characters.
Now, one of the other things that I would say about Hazel is that she's referred to as the Watson. Do you know what a Watson is?
Watson is Sherlock Holmes' sidekick in the story.
Yeah, he's the person who writes down almost all of the Sherlock Holmes adventures and tells them from his perspective. Now, is Watson as smart as Sherlock Holmes?
No.
No, he's not.
So technically, it's kind of an insult that Daisy is put on.
Exactly. Daisy calling Hazel Watson all the time does feel like a little bit of an insult, even if Hazel doesn't really take it as such. Do you think that they have that relationship where Hazel is just a sidekick?
No. Daisy Wells, one trait that I can put on her is she's a little bit self centered. No
R-
offense.
right. So Daisy is confident. She's beautiful. She's popular. Hazel is a little bit awkward and she struggles to fit in because she is from Hong Kong and
But
the other girls don't really accept her very quickly.
but she is very smart, not to put any shade on her.
She is definitely very smart. I think one of the things that's kind of fun about their relationship is that while Daisy definitely sees herself as the main character, Hazel also has moments where she is really brilliant and she spots things that haven't occurred to Daisy.
Like, if someone was in this room, they could have lied about their alibi. Or if someone was in this room and no one else was with them, that doesn't mean that the alibi is correct.
Right. So even though I think she begins as a sidekick, I think they're very much equals by the end of the story.
I feel like they're both equal in the ingredients to the good cake of murder.
Okay, so they're our two detectives. How about our victim, Miss Bell?
She's the science teacher, also the victim.
Also the victor. Now, something was going to happen right before she was murdered. What was that going to be?
I think she was about to become headmistress or she was up for the spot, but everyone knew she was going to get it.
Yeah, she's going to be deputy headmistress because the school has a headmistress, doesn't it? So the deputy headmistress is the person who's second in charge. She was going to get this big opportunity, and it was expected that was going to be announced anytime soon. So her suddenly turning up dead was quite a surprise, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which throws shade on a couple of characters who are also up for the same spot.
Right. So that is the first possible motive, isn't it? There are people who might want her dead because they were her competitors.
Yeah, that's true.
So we have a number of teachers who are possible suspects for that reason. There was another teacher who might be a suspect for a reason that they'd been in a relationship with her before, right?
Yes, and that person would have been the one
The one. So the one is a nickname the students give to a teacher, the
to
male
read,
Mr. Reed, the only male teacher in the school.
who is the music and art teacher.
Right. And the girls have kind of a fascination with him, don't they?
Yeah, because they're not used to having boys near them at the school.
Yeah, so they get a little bit giggly about that. There's a lot of gossip about his relationship, not only with Miss Bell, but with various other people. So there's lots of teacher gossip, isn't there?
Yes,
So we have some characters who may want her dead because
because
they're trying to get her job. And there may be other people who are upset with her for decisions that she's made and who may be feeling hurt about aspects of romantic relationships, right?
oh, and also one thing I forgot to mention is that compared to the other teachers, Miss Bell was actually quite poor.
Right. So, yeah, we have a little bit of discussion about social class, don't we?
Yes.
And the fact that this is a girls' private school means that we have kind of a disparity in some of the teachers' backgrounds.
Yeah. Miss Bell had been teaching here for a long time before she was murdered. But the question is, why would someone want to murder her?
So that is our question of motive. Now, we focused on discussing some of the teachers. Were there any teachers that particularly stood out to you as interesting?
Miss Minnie, the nurse, would probably be one of my favorites of the teachers.
Yeah, she's a lot of fun, isn't she?
Yeah.
So there are a couple of times in the story where we get to see her in the context of being in the sick bay. But what I really enjoy about this character is that she becomes kind of a way for the girls to get to do investigations. They try and get their way into sick bay so they then be free to go around the school.
Which means that she probably doesn't do a very good job at her job if she hasn't noticed the kids sneaking out of sick bay.
That's
Though
true.
most of the time they are sick in the middle of the night,
Yeah.
which means, and she also needs her sleep.
Yeah, exactly. She can't be there all of the time. I think that there are some interesting relationships between these adult characters, though. And some
Yeah.
of this happens quite directly, some of it's more implied.
Or some of it's there outside of it in a hallway overhearing this.
Exactly. So you have this adult world that the kids are listening into, not always understanding everything that's being said, but that it kind of gives them a sense of some of the tensions that they can then begin to unpick. Now, there are another group of characters, though, within the school, the students.
Oh, yes. They're some of my favorites.
Exactly. Now, I know that these are the characters you're keenest to talk about. So,
Yes.
why don't you begin by telling us a little bit about what it's like for these characters to be all together?
Well, let's start with about, I think we should start with like their roommates, don't you?
Absolutely. So, this is a school where almost everyone is a boarder. There are some day students, but it means that they are people who are kind of living in dorms and sharing basically every minute of the day together. They eat
Yeah.
together, they sleep in
Sleep.
the same dorms together, and that means that they're around each other all the time.
So I think we should start by talking about Beanie.
Okay, so Beanie is a character called Rebecca Martineau. Why do you love Beanie so much?
Because she's definitely the baby of the group.
I see. So,
Everyone in the story kind of has their own group, except for Daisy, who's like the leader of everyone's group.
Yeah, she's the popular one who goes between all of the different factions, right?
Yeah, she hangs out with the Marys sometimes, Kitty, Beanie. One thing I do want to talk about Kitty is her relationship with Beanie. They're supposedly like best friends. But the thing is, sometimes Kitty treats Beanie a little bit rough,
Mm,
kind of the way that Daisy has labeled Hazel Watson.
yeah. So they have kind of a relationship where one of them is definitely the boss of the other one, right?
Yes.
It must be tough being the littlest one in the grade level, like Beanie is.
Yeah. I think what they mean by littlest is that she's like the shortest, the smallest.
But she's also a little bit immature as well compared to
Yeah.
some of the others.
Like, she likes games that they don't, which can be a little bit hard if you're spending all their time with these and you're a little bit younger than them.
What about some of the other characters?
Oh, the Marys is one of my also favorites because they follow Daisy's every single question and they do stuff that I don't think anyone will ever do on their own mind just to carry something for her.
Yeah, they're desperate to be helpful to her and to be in the good graces of the girl who's the popular girl.
Yeah.
And then the other character that I know you want to talk about is the head girl, who's
King
called
Henry.
yeah, King Henry. That's her nickname. What is her deal?
Well, she's kind of like the leader. She bosses everyone around and she's not popular
No.
with the girls. She's popular with the big girls.
So all of these characters are kind of milling around. They are not really suspects in the story, right? We don't think that any of them have done the murder,
Yeah.
but they are there kind of providing a mixture of comic relief and character development.
And also they also help a little bit with the progression of eavesdropping in on the teachers and telling them stuff just as gossip that actually helps as helpful clues.
Exactly. So they have an important role to play in the mystery, not necessarily as suspects, but in terms of helping to assemble the case. And I think that one of the things this book does really well is it creates a believable school community filled with girls who feel realistic. I
Yeah.
never doubted that any of these girls would have existed in this kind of setting.
Though every character does have their own background, which you get to know later in the story. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that Robin Stevens does really well is she introduces us to Hazel and Daisy at a point where they're already good friends, but then she gives us their backstory over the course of the book. It's kind of woven into the main story. So you find out a little bit more about how these two very different girls became best friends.
Yeah. You'd never think that in real life they'd actually be friends unless you heard their backstory.
Yeah. So I think that the relationship between them is really interesting because it is built on some moments that you wouldn't think would lead to a successful friendship. One of those is a moment where basically Daisy sets Hazel up in a way that I would say is a little bit close to bullying, right?
Yeah.
She does something pretty bad to Hazel. And how does Hazel win Daisy over?
By not telling on her.
Yeah, they get through that situation. And Daisy realizes that she's kind of misjudged Hazel a little bit. And it kind of sets them on a different path where they can share things that they're excited about. One of those things being the mystery novels that Daisy loves to read. And I don't know if you noticed this, but throughout the book, Robin Stevens names drops maybe 15, 20 different novels.
Hmm.
And they're all real books that you can go off and read yourself.
Yeah.
So I think that's a lot of fun. Now, one question I wanted to ask at this point is, do you think that you are more of a Hazel or a Daisy?
I think I'm in between.
You think you're in between. You're going to sit on this fence, aren't you? I know you have an opinion about who I am, though.
Yeah, you're Hazel.
I'm a Hazel? I thought you said I was a Daisy.
You're Daisy in book one.
I'm a Daisy in book one, when she's at her worst. Thank you. So tell me about what you think makes me a Hazel.
Probably that you wouldn't do some of the stuff that Daisy would have done.
So you think that I like to play by the rules a little bit more?
Yes.
I think that's probably fair. Daisy is more of a bossy type, right? And I thought that was why you said that I was like Daisy. So we are with Hazel and Daisy as they investigate. And this investigation requires them to do a number of different things. You've already mentioned they kind of have to listen to some of the gossip. They sometimes ask questions.
And they sometimes have to sneak around.
Now, these were some of my favorite parts of the book. I don't know about you.
Yes, I loved it, especially when they got in trouble with Miss Strike, who is the house mistress.
So, what did you like about them getting in trouble?
I just love how King Henry caught them every single time, well, almost every single time, and how they seriously didn't care one bit. They didn't care about all the chores they had to do.
Do you think they both didn't care? Or do you think that Daisy didn't care and Daisy told Hazel that she shouldn't care?
Yes.
Because I do feel like Hazel enjoys being part of the society, but this is definitely Daisy. She really wants to solve this and prove that she can be as smart as the grown-ups, doesn't she?
Yes.
So there are some fun moments where they sneak around the school. There's some little tricks they play on the adults. We said at the beginning that there are different questions, right? There's the who did it, the why did it, how was it done, and where did they hide the body? Which of those questions do you think is the most interesting?
Who did it?
Who did it? So for you, it was all about the who.
I did not care about the how.
You didn't care. And I think that that is probably the least interesting question that is asked in the book. For me, the thing I was really interested in was where is this body? And
Yes.
some of the most memorable sequences about the book for me are them trying to find this body in the school. So I think that there's definitely an adventure side to the book that
Mhm.
keeps you turning the pages. You're really curious, when are the adults going to acknowledge that something is wrong? Because the kids are onto it. The kids kind of know that there's something weird going on. But the teachers seem to be believing the story that's being put around that maybe this teacher, Miss Bell, has just left the school
And
suddenly.
has retired.
So before we get into the spoilery section of
Spoiler.
spoilers, yes. Before we get to those spoilers, I want to ask you for your opinion. Do you think that this is a good book? And is it one that you would recommend to people?
Yes, I do. I would recommend this book. If I wasn't recommending this book, I probably wouldn't have done the podcast.
Well, that's fair. But it is possible that in the future we might talk about a book that you're less keen on. So,
Yeah.
what would you say is the number one reason people should read this story?
The plot
The plot is exciting.
and the characters.
And do you think that it has a satisfying conclusion?
Yes and no. Because you still have to wonder, like, how could they have done it so quick?
So, you still had questions at the end about the practicality of the murder.
Yeah.
But do you think that it was a interesting solution?
Yes.
Okay. So, in a moment, we're going to dig into that as we get into.
Spoiler alert. Dun dun dun. Dun dun dun.
Okay, so in this section of the podcast, we're going to talk in more detail about who did it and why. We're going to be a little less concerned about making sure that you don't get accidentally spoiled. So if you have not read the book, now is your cue to go ahead and read it and then come back.
Or if you just don't care, you can keep on listening.
Now, that's fair.
But you might want to pause right now and think about it before you continue inside the podcast.
So I want to begin by asking you about your feelings early in the book. We have had a moment where the body has disappeared. We've got to know a few of the teachers. We know a little bit about some of their secrets and some of their history. Who was the first person that you thought might be the killer?
Miss Hopkins, because she was discarded early in the book, and I thought that was kind of sus.
So, what you're talking about is not necessarily an evidence based assumption. What you were thinking is the writer is going to make it difficult for me to spot who the killer is, and they're probably going to trick me.
Yes.
And so you're expecting that someone who appeared to be ruled out of the murder.
Was it?
Now, you were actually right about that idea, that kind of trickery. You just picked the wrong person at first, right?
Yes. Miss Hopkins did have a secret, though.
She did. Almost all of the teachers have some kind of secret, something that they're keeping quiet, that they don't want other people to find out about. That's part of what makes this such a tricky mystery to solve. And I really enjoyed getting to learn some of those secrets. My favorite of them by a long way is Mamselle's secret, the French teacher.
She's not actually French.
She's not actually French, exactly.
She did go to France, but she was never born in France.
Right. And one of the teachers has a drinking problem. And of course, our murderer has the biggest secret of all. Now, you didn't get who the killer was as your first guess, but you did figure it out
On my second guess.
on your second guess. So you got to it a little bit earlier than me. I had gone down the route of thinking that it was most likely going to be in some way related to Miss Bell's relationship with the One. And I was thinking through different ways that that might have played out. I did get to the solution, just like you. And the thing that got me there was an aspect of the alibi. So our killer, who at this point I'm going to reveal is Miss Griffin,
And Miss Tennyson.
right? They have this plan. And I think that the thing that really makes us not think it's going to be Miss Griffin early on is that Miss Griffin appears to have a very clear alibi.
Yes.
She is apparently in a meeting with another teacher when this happens. Now, we learn later in the book that that meeting didn't actually take place. And when we learn that, we're focusing on that other teacher. The story wants us to think about the fact that she was lying about her alibi. But the trick here is that if her alibi is broken, it means the headmistress's alibi is broken, and a character we've never thought about, who has never appeared on the list of suspects that Daisy and Hazel put together, is actually there. And we just need to understand why she would have done it.
Yes. So, one thing that I think is a very clever trick is that they use two people as the murderer and then one of the people murdered the other person.
Right. So we have an issue where our conspirators basically fall out with each other, don't they?
Yes. Miss Tennyson fesses up to Daisy and Hazel that she did do the crime and immediately wants to go to the police.
Right. She says something that implies that she is guilty. And Hazel and Daisy, particularly Daisy, believes that they've caught the murderer at that point.
Yes.
But Hazel spots that there's something a little bit off, doesn't she?
Yes. And that is.
Well, she thinks there's something strange about the body language of Miss Tennyson. And when that happens, I think that you get a realization that Daisy might be making a big mistake.
Yes. For one of their second times in the book.
Exactly. So Daisy is brilliant. She is very gutsy. She makes big decisions, but she goes with that gut, doesn't she? She doesn't always stop and think through what some of the implications of what she's saying are. She stops thinking at that point, and Hazel keeps on thinking. And I think this is where Hazel comes into her own as an investigator and really does a lot of good work to help us get to the final conclusion.
And we all know the reason why Miss Tennyson did the murder. She wanted the spot as headmistress and knew that she couldn't get it.
Right. So she doesn't mean to be involved. She gets brought into it when Miss Griffin realizes that she's been seen, and she wants to kind of make sure that this person who's seen her isn't going to talk about the murder.
Yes.
So the deal is that they're going to go along with it, and they're going to keep it quiet, and as a result, she'll get that deputy headmistress position. But Miss Griffin knows that this is kind of a dangerous position.
Yes.
Because what we don't know at this point is that Miss Bell knows Miss Griffin's secret, and that's why she was murdered.
Yes.
So, for the listener, what is Miss Griffin's secret?
Miss Griffin's secret is that she murdered her own daughter.
Well, there is a bit of a question mark about whether she murdered her, isn't there?
Yes.
But she is responsible for the death of one of the students,
Yes.
who we know was
as Verity.
What we didn't know is that she was there at the time when Verity died, and that piece of information's been hidden.
Yes.
And the reason that they were together is that Verity had just been told by Miss Griffin that years earlier she had given her up as a baby,
Yes.
and that Miss Griffin had let her be adopted, and that her parents aren't really her birth parents.
And also, she hadn't just told her just then. She had told her before, and then she told another student, and basically they went up to the top to talk. And we never know if she was planning to push her off or if she was just making an aggression statement.
And if maybe it was an
accidentally-
accident. But either way, regardless of what happened, something tragic has occurred and her daughter has fallen to her death. And she decides to cover it up. She doesn't want to lose her job. Then a year later, when she's hiring a new deputy headmistress, Miss Bell gets the job, and Miss Bell decides that being deputy headmistress isn't really enough. She
Yeah.
decides she's going to tell Miss Griffin that she knows that she was responsible for Verity's death. And at this point, Miss Griffin is going into fight or flight mode. She needs to cover this up. And so she decides to basically do the same thing. And Miss Bell falls to her death.
But she left a couple of her secrets inside of a diary that they find in the same place that they've been meeting for a long time, which means they were near the answer to the puzzle the whole time.
That's kind of fun, right?
Yeah.
So let me ask you, what did you think of that as a solution to the story?
I thought it was actually very sad.
It's kind of tragic, right? Sh-
Yeah.
She is desperate to tell Verity that Verity is her daughter.
Yeah.
And she's really excited, and she expects that Verity is going to be excited too.
Yes. But actually, keeping a secret and not telling them as soon as they get into the school wouldn't make that good of a first impression as the mother.
And it's kind of one of those situations where you can understand why she would have thought that, but you can also definitely understand why Verity is as upset as she is. Because what Miss Griffin is telling her is destroying her whole world and her view about who she is and where she comes from and her relationship with her very loving adoptive parents.
Yeah.
And so you get this very weird situation where you have someone being found responsible for the murder. And for me, yes, I'm glad that they were called to account because these other things they did were terrible.
Hmm.
But there's something really sad about the fact that she's had to live with this knowledge about what she did
Yeah.
for a year. And so I think there's a question about whether it's an emotionally satisfying ending. I think that one of the things that really hits me about this book, which is written for kids your age, is it is such an emotionally complicated ending.
Yeah.
It's not clean. You don't have a character who is 100% a bad guy.
Yeah. Because we don't even know if Miss Griffin meant to kill her daughter.
Exactly. And so you get this really strange kind of situation at the end where the truth has been found, but it doesn't make everything clean and tidy. It kind of destroys worlds, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And even the school is kind of in a weird position at the end where all the students are going to get sent home.
I think that Henry has stuff to live with too, that she accidentally took her place of the best friend as head girl, which can make it feel also really sad.
Yeah. And so you get to the ending of the book where these characters have basically told the detective what the solution is,
Yeah.
and then they manage to get hidden in the room at the point at which the reveal happens.
Yeah.
What did you think of the reveal scene? Was it fun?
Yes, it was, but it was also kind of nerve-wracking because these girls knew that if Miss Griffin gets out, she's gonna want to get payback on them.
Mm. So it was really important they prove it and that the adults involved take action, which of course they do.
Yeah.
At the end, you do get a sense that the world, even if it's messy, at the very least, we've got a character who's going to be held accountable for the bad thing that she did.
Yes.
So, overall, what did you think of this as a mystery? Did you think that it all made sense?
Almost all of it did.
Hmm.
I can get why she did it, but the thing is, we saw Miss Griffin again at a different spot, which meant she have to hide the body inside the closet, get out, go back to the office, and talk with someone else.
She shows signs that she could have regretted what she did. She could have made efforts to try and come clean, but she chooses to hide her crime.
Yeah,
And that's why ultimately I think that we're supposed to be satisfied that she's caught
yeah, and also the way that she quickly knows how to hide Miss Bell. It kind of means she might have done it on purpose.
so that she had a plan.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's an interesting point to stop our discussion of this particular book. Now, I would have asked you, do you want to go on ahead and read the next book? But of course, you've already done that. So I think the next time that we do one of these, we'll be talking about the next book in the series, which is Poison is Not Polite. I don't want you to
Ooh.
spoil what you think about that book, but I can say that you want to read and talk about book 3 as well, don't you?
Yes.
So I'm guessing you quite liked it. But we'll
Yeah.
leave that discussion for another day. So,
And this has been the end of the spoiler alert.
so my name is Aidan,
And I'm MJ
and we really are glad that you joined us for our discussion.
of Murder is Bad Manners. Thank you for listening to Get a Clue, Dad.
And we'll see or hear you next time.
Bye. See you later.
This was an episode of Get a Clue, Dad, a Mysteries Ahoy podcast. The book we were discussing is Murder is Bad Manners, or Murder is Unladylike, by Robin Stevens, book 1 in the Wells and Wong series.